Hello, gardening friends. Welcome to Gardening with Calyx. I am Thelma, and I have around me these a few pots of the really spectacular Cattleya orchids. We happen to come across two overgrown pots, and we use them to demonstrate step by step how you can propagate an overgrown Cattleya, and we kept them long enough to show you the results after 8 weeks. So please keep watching. Thanks for staying. And for those of you who may not be familiar with this gorgeous orchid, well, I'm going to take a few moments to give you a brief introduction, and after that we'll get right into the hands-on demonstration. Cattleya orchids are native to Central and South America. They are epiphytes, which means they grow naturally on trees, and they're popular for their large fragrant flowers. You may grow your cattleyas either indoors or outdoors, just as long as you provide them with warm, relatively humid conditions. And we're looking at temperatures between, say, 65 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, and moderate levels of humidity between, say, 60 to 80% relative humidity. They also do best in dappled light, which means avoid direct sunlight. If your Cattleya orchid has light green leaves, it is a sign that they're getting sufficient sunlight and will likely bloom well. On the other hand, if your Cattleya orchids have dark green leaves, it suggests that they're either getting too much shade, too much water, or fertilizer. These plants will not bloom well under those conditions. When potting, make sure to use a well-drained potting media. In this demo, I'll use a combination of equal parts of medium-sized gravel, charcoal, and tree bark. In terms of watering, water well once a week or so and allow the media to dry out between watering. If the media is constantly damp, it will likely cause root rot, and you definitely do not want this. Now, I'll be covering other aspects of growing Cattleya and caring for Cattleya in a follow-up video. So at this point, I'd like to move right into the refurbishing or the propagating of these really overgrown orchids that you're seeing on the screen. Wow! Can you see the size of this? It's about 2 feet across. It's huge. This is not going to be easy. Before I get going, let me show you the tools and the materials that I'll be using, beginning with the cutting tools. You see 3 different types of cutting tools. These are for the fine roots. These may be for the segments, the rhizomes. And this certainly is to get into small spaces in order to separate some of the segments. Here's a small bottle of 70% isopropyl alcohol, which I'll use to sanitize the cutting tools between the various segments. A sturdy hand shovel and a small sprayer with water to keep the roots hydrated. We had no choice but to dismantle the wire baskets. I'm searching for a good place on the rhizome to make the first cut. It's not going to be easy. Here's a good spot. Ooh. 2 massive ones. This has, I would look, quick glance, looks about 10 pseudobulbs. That's a bit too many for the size pots that I'm planning to use. Plus, of course, this is a rescue mission. It is also part and parcel of an expansion that I have in mind. So here's a piece. This is 2, so this will go in a pot with another segment, an equally small segment. This one looks pretty good. And as I said, I'm just doing the splits now. There are 7 segments, so I'm going to let them stay. After the roots have become hydrated, that's when I will look to clean up, to trim away the older roots that are non-functional. Look at this. We got 6 healthy segment sets. This is the largest of the set, and there are 8, 9 pseudobulbs. So I'm going to put this in a rather large pot. And looking at the other segments, I would say we have sufficient for about 6 new pots. Now the other basket is even larger. So all in all, I think we'll have quite a good propagation going here, a rapid multiplication of Cattleya orchids. It's day 2 of the demonstration, and the next step is to clean up the roots. There's no shortage of dark, mushy looking roots. I'll remove as many of these as I can, and will leave the healthier roots that are lighter colored and relatively firm to the touch. Time to start the trimming. And as usual, I start by sanitizing the secateur. Now after I've removed the dead and dying roots, I'll be rinsing the remaining roots to remove any debris, followed by soaking for half an hour in a fungicide, and here I'm using the systemic fungicide Ridomil. This is an added protection from leaf spots and root rots. As you can see, these segments have already been exposed to these pests. For the final step, which is potting, we selected pots that we had around the garden. Fairly large ones, diameter between 10 to 12 inches. But you may choose smaller containers or maybe even mount them on trees. And in addition to the holes at the bottom of the pots, we added extra holes in the sides for ventilation. We used the potting media we showed earlier in the video, filled the pots and planted depending on the size of the pot. We placed the pots in an area where there are other orchids, and that area gets dappled light from a grapefruit tree. They settled in quite well. What you're looking at here on the screen is only 3 weeks after we did the potting. You can see that there are quite a few pots with flower buds emerging. Clearly they were there when we were doing the propagation, but they had not yet started to open up. So that's a good sign. Here are 3 of the pots 8 weeks after propagation, and there are several other pots that were in bloom. No, we're not saying that it took 8 weeks for the Cattleya to resume growth and flower. What it says instead is that those particular segments had already started their floral initiation and continued growing despite the level of stress that we put it under during the propagation. And just to prove that point, here is a segment with a lovely, lovely, well, it's coming up with 2 opened and another one getting ready to open. And this particular segment, if I just reach in and show you, that it really does not have any new roots. So that flower was already there waiting to pop. We can confirm though that there are other signs of new growth. Here is a shoot, here are 2 shoots coming out of this, the base of this pseudo bulb, and there are new roots elsewhere. I think I saw a new peeping out of the side of this pot. So that root had already put on quite a few inches for it to get to the exterior of the pot. So all in all, do not be afraid of splitting up your segments. They do resist or they recover quickly from the stress of having all of the old roots tugged away and from the rhizomes being split. And it's all for the good, because what a spectacular rejuvenation in a relatively short period of time. But we're going to watch these for a little while longer, a few more months, so that we can indeed report on the extent to which, or the time it takes for the Cattleya to reestablish itself fully in a pot. Because as it is now, they're not properly anchored, and any high wind or brush from yourself or your pets can dislodge the stems. As you can tell, this is the end of the video, and I hope you will forgive my not coming back on camera because trust me, this video was a lot of work. So if you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed as yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.